the 11th week of the year. Now, so it's it's the heart's week. And has, I mean the heart set of 13 weeks, the heart season. And it being the 11th week, it's the Jack of Hearts week. Essentially, it's the circlet. It's the week of the circlet. And because the first week of the year, that's the foundation. And from the June solstice, that first week, that's like the first heart. And so we deal with the first heart, the conditions of the first heart, and the foundation heart, and everything that means, and we experience it and we interact with that condition, and then we have 7 days to do that in. 7 is like the limit, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days. So it's not only a foundation week, being the first week of the hearts, but it's that first day of the week is the foundation day. It's for setting the foundation. So it's a thing within a thing, an inqua. You have 7 days to interact with the heart, with the foundation heart, with the first heart, with the heart of all, so to speak. And that sets the tone, you see, for the entire year. And already we've gone through each week. The second week is 2 of hearts, and the third week is the 3 of hearts, and the fourth week is the 4th of hearts, and so forth. All the way up to the 13 of hearts, 13th week. And of course there's 4 seasons in the year. And the first one is hearts. And the second one is spade. And the third one is diamond. And the fourth one is the glove. Now, Jehovah's angels, Jehovah's kingdom, I should say, kept this information alive through the Dark Ages, through the playing cards, and through a lot of different ways that they kept this information alive. And what better way, if you're dealing amongst the beast, you make a game of it, playing cards and all that. Well, anyway, those things are actually related through the Zion world is known as Kabbalah, but we know as faith this is the tree of light. The Hi'ai, tablet of Hi'ai, is a representation of that in Oahspe. And in that, we'll see the heart in that first row. Well, actually, it's the first row where there's more than one entities. And then there's a second row, and then there's a third row. And in that first row, you have the heart on one side, and then actually the heart is also, we can also call it the downward tugged heart. And it's like if you take a sphere and you tie a string there through the balloon, a spherical balloon, and then you down through here, and it goes through here and all the way down here, and if you pull it, it tugs it downward, and it tugs it down into a heart. See, from the circle, and you tug it down, it tugs down into a heart. It forms a heart. That's the downward tugged hearts, and the tuggings of the heart have to do with that. And so it's the downward tugged heart. But the spade is the upward tugged heart, the upward looking heart. It's tugged upward. It's the same sphere, only now it's tugged upward. And so that's on the opposite side. And so the heart is in the left-hand column down at the bottom row. Now, I'm not talking about those underneath and those above, but those 9 right there in the core of it. And so over here you have the spade on the right-hand side, the upward tugged heart, and the diamond is located up above. If you look in the tablet of Ai and Oahspe, you'll see it there, that's the diamond. And then up at the third row is the club, right in the middle there. That's the hidden Sephiroth, and it means brotherhood. The actual form of it is like that, and the symbol of it, it means brotherhood, and that's the club. And so anyway, so in the playing cards, you know, they show the club as being black, but essentially it means a receptivity or white. It's actually white or the mastery of white and black, so to speak. But it's more of a receptive color. And then the reds, which are the sort of going forth color in many ways. Which is, so if you think about it, so you have the heart, the red heart, and then you have the white or the black spade, which is also a spear point, like a spear point. And that's suitable for what for Oahsians, because the Oahsians are destroyers, and of course they use the spear. And the reason that I say Oahsians is because Uz sits right there. That Jehovah in his 8 children, that is to say the family of the universe, the 9 entities, they make up those 3 rows, 3 columns in the core of the tree of light. And that's the position of Uz down there. And so you have the upward tugged heart there, which can also be used in the lower, you know, in the lower interpretation, in the lower manifestation of it as a spear, as a destroyer, as a killing thing. But it can also be used to rise upward, to pierce upward, to penetrate upward, to get to the next level. And so the next level up is the diamond. Now the diamond starts at roll. So actually in the climb up the tree of life, you start at the base, the foundation, and depending upon the development of it or how it's laid out, and that kind of depends upon man's development, where man is in his development, corporeal man in his spirit, in his spiritual development, where he is in his comprehension and all that. But really, there's one there, there's one there, and then there's 3 there, 3 there, 3 there, and then you have the crown at the top. And so you have the rose way down here at the bottom, and then you have the corporea here. So it goes 1, 2, 3 up to the heart, 4 up to another hidden Sephiroth, another hidden station, and that hidden station is the Eon, or actually it's the union of the seed and the anchor, which the ancients called Eon because that was the easiest way for them to understand it, because they weren't, you know, to understand the union of the seed and the anchor, what does that mean, and so forth, you know. This union of the seed and the anchor, that actually is the union between these 2 hearts, between the downward tugged heart and the upward tugged heart. And so that's the next in the step, and then the next step goes to the upward tugged heart, and then you go from there, you know, with the upward pointing heart, you rise up into, now this, but where you were before you rose up, this, you know, you have 3 rows, essentially, and not including those down there, but you have 3 rows here. Now this row represents corporea, and this row here represents spirit, or atmospheria, and this up here, this top one, represents mind as well as etheria. And so you go from corporeal to the spiritual. And so that's to rise up into understanding of the spiritual, you need an upward pointing heart. you have to aspire toward the spiritual in order to, you know, to rise up to it. So, but when you rise up there, you see, you rise up into the diamond. Now, the diamond, it has a lot of different meanings and a lot of different sort of aspects. And I'm not saying any of the meanings are necessarily incorrect, but it depends upon the facet and how you're looking at it. But one thing that it does mean is that it does contain the spirit. It's like the diamond sort of represents the crystalline aspect, in a sense of being crystalline in spirit. And but the lower aspect of it, you see, when you read the ceremony of Hoed, well, but in the Hoed, you know, they said, well, the shiny corporeal, the shiniest, hardest, most adamant corporeal thing doesn't attract me. You know, the shining diamond, it doesn't, and because it's the spiritual, because that's what the meaning behind that is. It's the spiritual diamond that is the attraction, that is the point of spirit where you want to be, where you want to rest your spirit in. And then the next step is here to the sun, and then to the eye. I'm using the symbols that are in the Heiai, tablet of Heiai, which Heiai means of life. That means the tree of life. And then so from there it goes up to the crescent moon, and then it goes to the second hidden Sephiroth, which is actually learned about probably first. And the Kabbalists, I think some of them know about this hidden Sephiroth. And this one down here is basic. I've never heard of anyone ever mentioning that one, although it might be there at some point. But this hidden one up here is the Brotherhood one, and that's where the club is. And then you go to the star over here in this column, and then you go up to the crown up here, and then you go up to the crown up here. So so it starts here in the suits, in reducing all this knowledge. They gave 4 as the foundation for understanding all this, and that was the heart, the spade, the diamond, and the club. These levels. Okay, so the first level was the heart, and then the heart goes that way. The heart moves toward the spade, and they had to have the spade there because you need to rise up above the animal man, rise up above corporea, in order to perceive the spiritual realm, the spirit. And then above that is the soul realm, or etheria, or the level where the mind comes into its own, so to speak. But it's like just as it says in Oahspe, that the spiritual realm is a realm for the gymnasium for the spirit, because the purpose of the second resurrection here is to grow in strength and spirit. And so that lower foundation has to do with, well, essentially the soul in body form in corporea, the soul in corporea, or the soul in its depth, the soul in its as compared to like the soul in its highest expression up here, because this is the gymnasium for the soul is up here in etheria, but we don't get to etheria. We start it until we reach it through the resurrections and all that. Except for we can tune into it and rise, even though we're at these other lower levels, we can still perceive, and get to know it, just like we can get to know the Creator to some extent, so it's basically rising closer to that. Well, anyway, So you start off with the foundation, which is the heart, and it has to do with corporea and form and soul and all that. And then you go forward. And so the first week of the first season of the year starts in June, and it goes to, now we're talking about the spiritual seasons now. The corporeal seasons are different, because the corporeal seasons, you start with springtime, essentially. When things come up and all that. But in the spiritual seasons, you actually start the high point. You start you go from light to light, from June solstice to June solstice to June solstice. And so that foundation one, that first season, because there's 4 seasons in a year, and each season has 13 weeks. And 4 groups, 4 seasons, 4 times 13, it's 52 weeks. So there's 52 weeks in a year. That completes your year, one oscillation of the earth. And so the first week is dedicated to essentially this foundation here, and the heart, and dealing with the heart. And there's 13 stages of development that we can gain mastery over, we can learn about, we experience them. They're milieus, they're conditions, they're actual realities of sort of like a mindset, except for it isn't the mindset. I mean, a mindset is you think of that as something formed within a larger framework. And this larger framework that it's set within, this is what these weeks are. It's that larger framework, but it's also the interior, the most innermost part of it. It's like an environment, but it's like an environment that has a sensibility about it. And I don't mean in the sense of it being an actual person, but in the sense of ambience, so to speak. It's like if you go to a spooky house of horrors on Halloween, that's an ambience. That's and you can expect certain things. There's always going to be try to scare you or whatever, and all that. And then on the other side, you have like a house of love. The tunnel of love and the romance, you go through that, and all these beautiful things and all that. So that's a different type of ambience, a different type of experience, a different type of framework within which a person is living and experiencing. And so there's like 13 of these frameworks, of these experiences with regard to the heart, to the downward tug heart. Now, the downward tugged heart, it gets what calls us to something. It's like your child, mama, or daddy, daddy. And so it's tugging on your heart. They're tugging on your heart when they're calling you. That's the downward tug. Is those who are beneath you in development, and there's always somebody beneath you in development, just like there's always somebody above you in development who can call you upward, whose actions or whatever act as a galvanizing influence. You see it and you go, yeah, I want to go. That's what I right there. That's So you move toward that with the upward one. But the downward tug one is dealing with these downward tugs, with the call of corporea, the call of the physical body, but also of the emotions, of this milieu, this sort of milieu of those things that we mentioned, corporeal, but also soul. You see, corporeal. Now that's like the outer aspect, or the maybe we might say the lowest aspect, but it isn't really. I mean, self is lower than that, and even that's what these down here kind of represent, so that's what the rose represents down at the bottom. That's like the going right down to the quick, so to speak, to essence of things. You get down to the rose level, and that's where a person then moves up from there into a choice, into corporea. They're born into corporea, or at least they have some experience in corporea, even if it's just short, even if it's an unaborted spirit, they have some experience there in corporea, where anyway, along the way you have choices to make. And same with when you get to the heart station, you have choices that you have to make. And so it's all about, dealing with these downward tugs. The first season, and like I said, there's 13 of them, 13 steps, but there's actually really 10 steps, which completes it, and 10 is complete from Samoin, so we know that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you have the 10 of hearts. And then you have what are called the royalty cards. You have the Jack or the Knave and the Queen and the King. And those are, the Jack is the 11th, and the Queen is the 12th, and the King is the 13th week. And you deal with those vibrations when you get to those during that week. Well, the 11th week, now the 11th from Samoin, we know is the reflection of the foundation. And the foundation is found all the way back in 1. So the Jack of Hearts, or the Knave, really represents the initial stage of officership, if you want to think of that, commissioned officer, so to speak, in the realm of hearts. It's like before you 1 through 10 you experience all the complete conditions. Now 11, now you're dealing with them sort of as a whole, as a group. You deal with the hearts as in all the different conditions, and the circlet, which is depicted and called the halo, but the artist depicted as a halo and all that. But it's actually the foundation of both the tiara and the crown, which come above it, and the tiara is at the queen level, and the crown is at the king level. And these are spiritual accomplishments. You can't fake them. You can't will them to appear, to be anything. That they're a result of where one is in one's development. So they can't be faked, but they do need to be worked on. They do need to be developed. So they can't be faked, but they do need to be worked on. They do need to be developed, because we all have the talent to develop our circlets, which is right up here. And the circlet actually deals with, this bottom one actually deals with this level here, deals with the Ruche light. I mean, yes, it has but also the corporea, but also the Ruche. The Ruche is the light of the soul, we call, and illuminates the soul. And this middle one deals with the Vas light, but also it deals with the tiara, and then the top one deals with the crown, which with the Shem light in Etheria. Well, we're dealing with the downward tugged heart during this week, and you have 7 days, and 7 is the limit. That's like the fullness. That's fullness, represents fullness, and in Samoin, but also in all aspects of life. And so that's like an understanding that we gain with regards to each of these, the hearts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and now we're at 11. So this 11, so this circlet, so dealing with the circlet means standing upright, and dealing with the hearts in these aspects, and those aspects that were mentioned. And the circlet is simply that too. It's simply a circlet of light. That's all it is. It's a circlet of light. But it's a circlet of light that is, when you're developed, you have one. You have one right there. It sits right there. Right there. As you develop in your capacity, when you get to that stage, of that level, when you've gone through all the 10 and you sufficiently advanced in each of it, you have a modicum of understanding of each of them and a certain mastery, not over the entirety of it, but sufficient that at some point, when you don't get bowled away by all this stuff, essentially is what it is that you stand there with your light, you sustain the light, you maintain the lights that there, you stay with the light, with the circlet of light. And this circlet of light, you see, it's really just like we're sparks of the Creator, part of His light and all that stuff. Well, these circlets are the same as what everybody has, and all the gods, the highest gods, the chieftainesses that you want to go up and all that, they all have this, and everything's all in tune. So it's like a part of all those circlets that ever are or ever will be, except for we're gaining one. We work on one particular aspect at first, whatever it is that's within us. We develop that, and at some point, when we've developed sufficiently, we can symbolically receive circlets from Jehovah's kingdom. And there's certain angels of the inner temple of Jehovah that they'll give them to you. They said, this is what you've earned. And but basically all that really is sort of like an amplifier, or it's something to strengthen the one that you have. It's the same as when you're first initiated into the inner temple, because the inner temple is about developing the soul of man, and the steps that you take this to become ready to live in the life of the soul, and you want to develop the soul life, not the corporeal life. That's a different thing. Yes, we develop the corporeal life, but the inner temple, but that's the outer temple, the corporeal life, the outer temple and all that, and what's out here in corporea and the worldly stuff. And so, but the inner temple deals with the soul realm and the soul reality, which is out here. Well, okay, and so the circlet has to do with the ruche, with the soul realm and all that stuff. And so when you're first initiated into the inner temple, you move toward the holiness of the light. You start at the bottom and you go up here to the holiness of the light. You try to get to you're going for your first degree, and that's where but when you're initially initiated in the inner temple, the angels come, they resonate in tune with that spark of light that's in your soul, with a ruche that you have within your soul, the one that wants to listen to Jehovah, and because Jehovah speaks through that light. Okay, he is the light of the ruche. And so what the angels do is that they act like they're acting like with your guitar string. If you have a guitar string, and you plunk it in the key or in the note of E, then any other strings that are also tuned to E will vibrate, you see. And that's what the angels do, is they help that light within the soul to stay with you. It's like lighting the light in a candle or inside you, so to speak. It's your own light that you're perceiving and all that, but it's like strengthened. They somehow strengthen it, and that's to help you, to find the light, to stay with the light of Jehovah, because that's what you're searching for. You're searching for that holiness, that holy light and all that. Well, that's just when you're first initiated into the inner temple. But now what we're talking about here is we're talking about the development up here with the circlet, which has to do with when you've attained to that, like I say, the angels of the inner temple, Jehovah's kingdom, they will give you a representation of that, which does that same sort of strengthening thing that they did for you in the soul, with the flame in the soul. And now you get it up here, and that helps you to stay with the kingdom of Jehovah, essentially, to stay in tune with it, with Jehovah's kingdom, because that's what we all want. We all want to become one with Jehovah through his kingdom. And we can try it any other way, but it's not going to work. It's only through his kingdom. And his kingdom is for freedom for all, so what's not to like, right? Well, anyway, that's just the circlet. Now, that's what this week is about. Now, next week is going to be the tiara, which has to do with the Queen of Hearts. Right. And the tiara, just to let you quickly know, is where you start with the circlet. Well, the tiara is the rise from the circlet. Okay, you're going to actually rise from the foundation, and you're going to broaden your understanding of what's going on, and your comprehension and your ability to master the elements and a higher, because right now the tiara is essentially, the circlet is the foundation thing, the foundation of that, and you build from that foundation. And then the crown is essentially how the loft that you get. It's basically an infinite number of circlets, a circlet on top of a circlet on top of a circlet on top of a circlet, in the same manner that the Nirvanian chain is a series of the Orion belts upon Orion belts upon Orion belts. Now, there's an infinite number, but we each, according to our internal affinity that Jehovah created us with, we bring forth certain aspects of that. And so while our crown has an infinite number of circlets in it, we only tend to illuminate certain ones as we develop. Now, as we develop, the more and more, we gain more and more all the time. And so there is more than one aspect, even of a circlet, because there's really basically like an infinite number of circlets, but they're still rudimentary ones, so to speak, fundamental ones, and all that that people start with, and all that, and build upon. And so that's this is the week. This is the week where all this takes place, all this cohesiveness of dealing with the hearts, of understanding the hearts, and how do you go forward in the heart? How do you sustain the heart in all its manifestations and all that? It can become, it's just vast. It can be just vast, or you can just focus on one aspect. And but that's this week. And then, by the way, the following season, which is going to be the upward tugged heart, or the spade, that's going to deal with all 13 again. They're going to have their own levels of 1 through 10, and then also the circlet and the tiara on the crown. And then the next season after that, which is going to be the diamond, and then that has its thing, and then the next one after that, which has to do with the club, which has to do with brotherhood, which has to do with the kingdom on Jehovah's kingdom on earth, and the whole year ends on that crescendo note. And then you have, there's holy. That's why it's such a holy time and everything, and you have the most holy Sabbath and so forth and all that, and then the whole new year starts. So that's it in a nutshell. Blessings.